and welcome to this month's book chat. We are in September and I have 9 thrillers that I've read this month that I'm going to share with you. So since we have a lot, we're going to dive in. I have some really good ones that I was super excited about and some that were a little meh, but let's start. So the first book is called The Last Flight, and this is by Julie Clark. I read one of her books last month called The Lies We Tell. So that was the book that I read from her last month, and I liked it so much I decided to get another one. So let me go ahead. I don't know what I was. I decided to get another one. So let me go ahead and read you the back of that one. 2 women, 2 flights, 1 last chance to disappear. You might know a husband like Claire's, ambitious and mired with deep pockets. But behind closed doors, he has a temper that burns as bright as his promising political career, and he's not above using his staff to track Claire's every move. What he doesn't know is that Claire has worked for months on a plan to vanish. A chance meeting in an airport brings her together with a woman who seems equally desperate to flee her life. Together, they make a last-minute decision to switch tickets. Claire taking Eva's flight to Oakland and Eva traveling to Puerto Rico as Claire. But when the Puerto Rico plane crashes, Claire's options narrow to one impossible choice. Assume Eva's identity along with it, the secrets Eva fought so hard to keep hidden. With your back against the wall, would you be brave enough to take the chance you're given? So this book, I will say, is a medium thriller. It's suspenseful, it has twists and turns, but it's definitely not gory. There is abuse in here, so just keep that in mind if that's something you don't want to read. But I like this book. I was kind of sad about it. The ending is good, but then it was like, It was one of those endings where it was in between because I finally found out what happened, and I was just like, oh, but still a good read. I will say that this book, at first it kind of seems as though, I do like how one of the characters does develop and you find out they're not a creep. But I will say it kind of came out of left field. They do explain it, but I feel like they explain it so close to the end. So it would have been nice to see more development there of how everything came together. But other than that, I really did like this book. And like I said, it's an easy thriller to read. It's not super gory. Definitely something I would recommend reading if you like something thriller, but light. So more suspenseful. The next one I read was The Family Next Door. I did read a Sally Hempworth book last month, and it was one of my favorite reads, The Soulmate. But this one called The Family Next Door, let's take a read. So from the outside, Essie's life looks idyllic: a loving husband, a beautiful house, and a good neighborhood, and a nearby mother who dotes on her grandchildren. But few of Essie's friends know her secret shame, that in a moment of maternal despair, she once walked away from her newborn, who was asleep in her carriage in a park. Disaster was avoided and Essie got better, but she still fears what lurks inside her, even as her daughter gets older and she has a second baby. When a new woman named Isabel moves in next door to Essie, she's an immediate object of curiosity in the neighborhood. Why single? Why single when everyone else is married with children? Why renting when everyone else owns? What mysterious job does she have? And why is she so fascinated with Essie? As the 2 women grow closer and Essie's friends voice their disapproval, it starts to become clear that Isabel's choice of neighborhood was no accident, and that her presence threatens to bring shocking secrets to life. Family Next Door is Sally Hempworth at her very best, at once a deeply moving portrait of family drama and a compelling suburban mystery that will keep you hooked until the very last page. Once again, I'm going to say this is more of a light, suspenseful thriller. It's not super gory, not super scary. I do love the way she writes. It's easy to read. The books are easy to get through. I will say I did not see the actual ending coming. That was not what I thought it was going to be. So keep an open mind in this one. One thing I do like about this book is it brings out everybody's little drama. So you think that everybody could be you're trying to figure out which person is up to something and which person is actually doing the wrong thing. It wasn't the person I thought it was. It definitely wasn't. But it does have, what we can say a good ending. It's kind of hard. Once you read the book, it's like, oh, is that really a good decision? But, it does talk about a lot about postpartum and things that can happen and come with that. So I think that makes the ending kind of like where I'm like, okay, I understand the ending. But definitely a good one. I would say it's definitely a good read. All these people in this book got drama, girl. All of them are doing the craziness. I will say the soulmate, if I compare these two, the soulmate is still number one. The next one I read, also by Sally Hempworth, The Mother-in-Law. So this one, from the moment Lucy met her husband's mother, she knew she wasn't the wife Deanna had envisioned for her perfect son. Exquisitely polite, friendly, and always generous, Deanna nonetheless kept Lucy at arm's length despite her desperate attempts to win her over. And because she was a pillar in the community, an advocate for female refugees, and a woman happily married for decades, no one had a bad word to say about Diana except Lucy. That was 5 years ago. Now Diana is dead. A suicide note found in her body claiming that she no longer wanted to live because of the cancer wreaking havoc inside of her. But the autopsy finds no cancer. It does find traces of poison and evidence of suffocation. Who could possibly want Diana dead? Why was her will changed at the 11th hour to disinherit both of her children and their spouses? And what does it mean that Lucy isn't exactly sad she's gone? Fractured relationships and deep family secrets grow more compelling with every page in this twisty, captivating novel from Sally Hempworth. Now, this one was another really good one. Once again, it's light. I felt like my first 3 books came out of the gate super light and super easy. I will say that and if you watch my last video, I talk about how in the soulmate communication was lacking, which caused a lot of problems. I do like the fact that in this one, even though from the back it just seems like what's going on? I do like the way the story developed, and it allowed you to see what happened between the characters. There's still some lack of communication that caused things to happen the way they did, but I will say that I did enjoy this book. And once again, the whodunit still surprised me. I will say I did not see that coming, because I was like, dang, that's like hardcore. That's hardcore. So I do recommend this one as well. The Soulmate would be my favorite. This would be number 2. And then The Family Next Door, just out of the Sally Hempworth books, would be number 3 if I was kind of comparing which ones I like the best. With The Last Flight and Lies We Tell by Julie Clark, I did read 2 of her books. I feel like they're kind of at the same. Like, I feel like you'll enjoy them equally for those. All right, so now moving on to another author, a new author for me, Shari Lapena. Everyone here is lying. Now, when I tell y'all, this is when my thrillers got good. People crazy. You know how, so where I'm from, people be like, people fool. Them people fool. There was some fool people in this book. Let me just say that. Now, one thing, there is mention of abuse in here. Different types of abuse, so just keep that in mind if that's something that does trigger you. But this book was good. I will say I wanted more, but I do feel like the book ended and you know what happened, which is great. I just wanted to see it play out, especially in this case. I'm a person no, I want you to give me play-by-play, because that person they were a piece of work. There are a couple people in here that's a piece of work, and you're gonna know when you read this book who I'm talking about. So I just wanted to see it play out. But based off of what happened, you could fill in the blank. So definitely loved it. Definitely will keep you on your toes through the entire book. And when you find out what happened, you're going to be like, oh my goodness. And then it didn't play out the way I wanted it to, but it was still good. So, okay, welcome to Stanhope, a safe neighborhood, a place for families. On the surface, William Wooler is a family man, but he's been having an affair, and a affair that ended horribly this afternoon at a motel up the road. When he returns to his house, devastated and angry to find his difficult 9-year-old daughter, Avery, unexpectedly home from school, William loses his temper. Hours later, Avery's family declares her missing. Suddenly, Stanhope doesn't feel safe, and William isn't the only one on his street who's hiding a lie. As witnesses come forward with information that may or may not be true, his neighbors become increasingly unhinged. Who took Avery Wooler? Nothing will prepare you for the truth. So, and nothing. So the other thing I will say about this book is people have to watch their reactions and their assumptions, because this book definitely talks about that. And a lot of times I'm like, you were okay assuming XYZ, but when it comes to your front door, and I think that's something like in this world we lack. We always want to make assumptions, but when it's us, then it's like, oh, well, why would you say that about me? So I definitely like that they touched on that in this book. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed this thriller. So 10 out of 10 recommend. Now, the next one, The Family Remains. So when I bought this book, I was not aware that there's like one before it. But I do feel like you can get through it without having to read that. Now, I will say this kind of threw me. I feel like anytime like there's a family tree you have to navigate, it's like, okay, how am I going to keep this straight? But once you get into it, it's easy. Once again, there is a lot of abuse in this book. I feel like why all the thrillers have to have like abuse, and especially when it surrounds children, that's not always that great. Well, no, it's never great. So yeah, just keep that in mind. This is a good book. Like I said, you don't have to read the first one, quite honestly, because I was talking to the person at the bookstore and I was like, oh, well, maybe I should get the first one. But I was like, I've already started it, so I kept going. And for me, because of the type of abuse, I don't need to read the first one again. Like, I don't feel like I need to go back. I would be excited to see how, like, if there's a third one, how it develops. Because I will say, okay, let me read the back and then I'll give you my thoughts. So, early one morning on the banks of the River Thames, DCI Samuel Wusu is called to the scene of a shocking discovery, one that will unearth a decades-old crime linked to the unsolved murder of 3 people in a grand Chelsea mansion. In another part of the city, Rachel Rimmer received shocking news as well. Her husband, Michael, has been found murdered, and the police demand her to answer their questions about his past and his unsavory business partners. Questions Rachel needs to know just how to answer in order to keep her secrets safe and locked away. Lucy Lamb, on the other hand, is finally home after fleeing London 30 years ago in the wake of a horrifying tragedy. She has grand plans to settle herself and her children in their first ever home and is seconds away from that security and relief when the events of her past come to light and her brother takes off to find the key to everything that haunts them. Brilliantly plotted and achingly suspenseful, this masterful standalone sequel. So they do say it's a standalone, so that's why you could figure, like I could figure it out. So I guess the first one is helpful, but you will still be fine, and I was fine. Sequel to Lisa Jewell's New York Times bestseller, The Family Upstairs, confirms that Lisa Jewell is undoubtedly the queen of thrillers. I don't want to say all that, but the book was good. So I do think there was a letdown because I feel like they play up one character to where they're just like on edge and you just think something, but I feel like that plot line was kind of a letdown. I feel like the plot line with Rachel was actually kind of more exciting, that ties all these people together. I just think the one with the other character, and you'll know once you're reading it, was kind of a letdown. But then at the end, that Cray Cray comes back. So I'm like, ooh, is there a third one where he actually unleashes and you get to see all of what they build up like actually occur? But I did like the book. It was a good book. It's a good book. So yeah. The next one, All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. And I don't know. Yes, I have been saying the authors. So yes. This was another one. So if I'm saying my favorite reads this month would be Everyone Here Is Lying, and then All the Dangerous Things is also one of my favorite reads. So this one is by Stacy Willingham. She's actually local to the Savannah area, so not too far. Or is it Beaufort? Beaufort. Wait. Well, she went to school in Savannah, Georgia. She currently lives in Charleston, which is where I live. So she's a local, but I don't know. It doesn't say where she's from. But anyway, the book is centered in Beaufort, South Carolina, as well as Savannah, Georgia. So let's go ahead and give a read. 1 year ago, Isabella Drake's life changed forever. Her toddler son, Mason, was taken out of his crib in the middle of the night while she and her husband were asleep in the next room. With little evidence and few leads for the police to chase, the case quickly went cold. However, Isabel cannot rest until Mason is returned to her, literally. Except for the occasional catnap or small blackout where she loses track of time, she hasn't slept in a year. Isabel's entire existence now revolves around finding him, but she knows she can't go on this way forever. In hopes of jarring loose a new witness or buried clue, she agrees to be interviewed by a true crime podcaster. But this interest in Isabel's past makes her nervous. His incessant questioning paired with her severe insomnia have brought up uncomfortable memories from her childhood, making Isabel start to doubt her recollection of the night of Mason's disappearance, as well as second guess who she can trust, including herself. But she is determined to figure out the truth no matter where it leads. Following up her instant New York Times bestseller, A Flicker in the Dark, Stacy Willingham delivers a totally gripping thriller about a desperate mother with a troubled past. Communication, though. There was a lot of communication lacking, because if people had communicated, a lot of the things that were thought would not have been thought, which would have helped her. You gotta communicate. Like, it's so crucial. Like, literally letting people believe things. Okay, I don't want to give it away, but just say the story of her past with the future tells a lot, and how it all ties together is great. I will say there were times where I felt like when they kept doing the backstory, I just wanted them to get to the point. But what I'm realizing, like, I keep saying that, but that's what keeps you wanting to read the book. I just feel like sometimes it's a little drawn out, but once again, I highly recommend reading this one. I wasn't disappointed. The only thing I was disappointed in is a reaction, because once again, I feel like sometimes people react in a way that affects other people being held accountable. And sometimes I'm just like, you gotta rein it in. You gotta rein it in so you watch them suffer, because I want to see you suffer. You screw me, I want to see you suffer. And this one, people crazy. And what some people will justify, like, or make justifiable is completely crazy. But anyway, definitely recommend this one. So read it. Now, my third favorite read for the month, which it's not a thriller. It gives you witches and mystery and that suspense. It's not, but it does, I feel like, still have thriller elements. So that's why I was into it. But Weyward, this is probably my favorite book. And I think I liked it so much because you have three completely different women from three completely different time periods, and they all just learn to kind of stand in who they were and, help that next generation through the powers of their familial, is that the word? Connection? Anyway, so I am a Weyward and Wild Inside. 2019, under cover of darkness, Kate flees London for ramshackle Weyward cottage inherited from a great aunt she barely remembers. With its tumbling ivy and overgrown garden, the cottage is worlds away from the abusive partner who tormented Kate. But she soon suspects that her great aunt had a secret, one that lurks in the bones of the cottage, hidden ever since the witch hunts of the 17th century. 1619, Alpha is awaiting trial for the murder of a local farmer who was stampeded to death by his herd. When Alpha was a girl, her mother taught her their magic, a kind not rooted in spell casting, but in deep knowledge of the natural world. See, people won't call people witches, and all they're doing is using nature. But unusual women have always been deemed dangerous, and as the evidence of witchcraft is laid out against Althea, she knows it will take all her powers to maintain her freedom. 1942, as World War II rages, Violet is trapped in her family's grand crumbling estate, straitjacketed by a societal convention. She longs for the robust education her brother receives and for her mother, long deceased, who is rumored to have gone mad before her death. The only traces Violet has of her are a locket bearing the initial W and the word Weyward, scratched into the baseboard of her bedroom. Weaving together the stories of three extraordinary women across 5 centuries, Weyward is an astonishing debut and an enthralling novel of female resilience. Oh, this is a debut novel because I was like, I want to read more about these people. So this is her debut. I can't remember from one to the next, but absolutely love this book. Once again, there is abuse. Some, I guess, back in the 1940s, like, people dated their cousins. I don't know. That was just a little weird for me. Dang, that's never been okay in my family. But okay. But I will say the brother, when a man shows up for a woman, I just love it, and does it unapologetically, and does it knowing that, hey, you might miss out on some stuff. I love it. But I'm just gonna say, read this book. It was my absolutely favorite read from this month, and I am interested to read more from Emilia Hart. So that's that one. All right. Now, this is where things kind of took a turn, because I honestly don't understand the point of this book. So it's called The Echo Wife. I'll read the back. Martine is a genetically cloned replica made from Evelyn Caldwell's award-winning research. She's patient and gentle and obedient. She's everything Evelyn swore she'd never be. And she's having an affair with Evelyn's husband. Now the cheating bastard is dead, and both Caldwell wives have a mess to clean up. Good thing Evelyn Caldwell is used to getting her hands dirty. So that's that synopsis, but I thought there was another one. Maybe it didn't actually tell. Anyway, it's a thriller. It's about a clone. But the problem with this book for me, and it is, honestly, the book is short, so you can get through it quickly. It is an easy read, but it took me a while, so I don't know if it was, I don't know. It took me longer than I felt like it should have. But my issue with this book, with it being a thriller, I never felt like there was any danger. So I felt like I honestly just felt like I read what happened. Okay, the guy is dead. And they had to clean it up. And literally, I feel like the book was just that. And they came up with a way to clean it up, but there wasn't any, like, if there's a murder, I feel like somebody should be at risk. Like, I never felt like, oh, if we turn this corner, they might get, like, I just felt like I was reading what was happening, and that was it. Like, I just didn't feel like, and this is a mind-bending psychological page turner. It wasn't. My mind was never bent. I was just trying to figure out when is the juiciness gonna happen, and I feel like there were places for it to become ooh, and it never happened. So I mean, you could skip that one. I don't think it's worth it. But if you read it, let me know what you thought, because maybe I'm missing something. Like, I feel like it was just about this lady learning about herself, and that was it. So the last one I read, also one of my faves. So I will say, out of the stack of 9, I have 4 favorites. This being one of them, where I'm like, absolutely go read it. And it's called You Know Her by Meagan, Jennett. So that's a cover. So this one, 2 hours before he vanished, Mark Dixon stole a glass of wine. That's what bartender Sophie Brom tells the cops when they question her about the customer whose mutilated body was just found. What she doesn't tell them is that she's the one who killed him. Officer Nora Martin is new to the Bel Air Police Department and is trying very hard to learn the ropes from Detective Murphy while ignoring all her male colleagues, griping about a diversity hire. When she meets Sophie, they build an uneasy camaraderie over shared frustrations. As winter slides into spring and bodies start piling up, Nora begins to suspect that something's not quite right with the unnerving enigmatic, E-N-I-G-M-A-T-I-C, enigmatic bartender. But will she be able to convince Murph, or will he keep laughing off the idea that the serial killer haunting their little town is a woman? A crackling cat and mouse thriller set against the verdant backdrop of small town Virginia. Meagan Jennett's You Know Her probes the boundaries of female friendship and the deadly consequences of frustration fermenting into rage. So I really like this book. The one thing I will say that I didn't like is I was not a fan of the end. That thing made me mad. Is there a part 2? Because I need to know what happened. Like, I know what she did, but I need to know what happened beyond that. I just did. Okay, my dad's here. I'll be back. One moment, please. Okay, I'm back. He brought me dinner. Okay, what was I saying? So basically, this book, I did love this book. I don't think I said anything yet except read the back. But anyway, I love this book. This is what I was saying. I want to know if there's another book because there's like, you know that they know. However, what happens? Like, I just feel like I want to know more. I don't know if I don't want to give it away, but I just feel like we know. And one thing I will say, I do love a book when I know who the killer is already, because it's like listening to the people trying to figure it out and just being like, how is that not so obvious to you? So I do love that we know who the killer is. I will say the book kind of took a turn. It took about 50 pages because when I pick my books up, I don't reread the summary. I just start reading the book. So the first 50 pages, I had no clue what this book was about. And then I was like, oh, that's this book. And I will say the first 50-ish pages are kind of hard. They're really slow. But after that, it does pick up. The thing about this book is I expected her to be one way because of the first killing. And I was like, I mean, okay, you kind of brought that on yourself. But then it just went left, and I was totally surprised by what happened at the end. Like, because it went from, oh, maybe you're like a vigilante, which, not saying that killing somebody is okay. However, and when you read the book, it's like, you brought that on yourself. However, like, that kind of changed as you read the book, and I was totally shocked by what she did at the end. And that's why you also can't tell people your business, because you never know who your friend is. And Nora should have really just stuck to her. Not saying that she did not stick to her guns, but she knew something was off. And it's kind of like, if you know something's off, you don't mess with that person. You kind of, that spirit of discernment, you gotta really use that and be like, okay, I'm not gonna tell Sophie my business because I already think she a little off. I do love the relationship between her and her boss. I think he definitely had her back. I just want to know, is there a part 2? Like, because I do feel like it was still left a little open. I just noticed on the back, because I didn't really read the back, but Julie Clark also, which of course, I like her books. You Know Her shines a light on the many ways women shoulder the emotional burdens of the world. But in this clever and sharp novel, it's the men who suffer the consequences. Incredibly dark and with writing that drips pure emotion, You Know Her will haunt your dreams at night and have you checking over your shoulder during the day. Julie Clark. Now, I will say I like the fact that it wasn't women running scared. They were not the target. I thought that was great because you typically don't see that. You typically don't hear about the serial killers that are women. So that was definitely great and refreshing. But yeah, but I like this one. Like, I really, really like this one. So definitely read it. So out of all of my books, my favorite books, once again, that if you're going to read something next, these are the ones you should reach for. And that would be Everyone Here Is Lying, All the Dangerous Things, Weyward, and You Know Her. Definitely pick those 4 up and read them. The Echo Wife is the only one where I'm like, save yourself the money. How much was this book? This book was $16.99 where I bought it from. I feel like you can save yourself the $16.99. That's the only one where I was like, I didn't have to read it. I guess it's... The crazy thing is it didn't suck. It just didn't... I just don't get the point of the book. Because there was never anything that made me go like, oh. So anyway, Yeah, so nine pretty good, 8 good reads, 1 and 4 that you should definitely put your hands on. But yes, those are my reads for this month. I do have like 2 reads left over, actually 3, but I'm probably not going to finish it like I did last time. If I finish the one that I'm currently reading, I will pop back in and put that in this video. If not, you'll see it in my October wrap up. Wait, no, this is August. Did I say this is my September wrap up or my August wrap up? It's August. It is my August wrap up book chat. If I don't finish that other one before this video goes live, before the end of this month, because we do technically have another day and a half, but I literally just started, so I don't think I'm going to get to the end of it. If I do happen to get to the end of it, I would definitely pop it into this video. If not, you'll see it in September. I do have a challenge that I want to tell you guys about in September that I'm going to do for Booktober. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you loved this wrap up, this little book chat. If you've read any of these books, tell me your thoughts. If there are any out there, that you're reading that you just want to talk about, let's do it. Also, I may do this a little differently because I do find like sometimes I forget details about the book. So maybe I'll record as I finish the books. That way all of my thoughts are fresh in my head. So we might do it differently next month. But thanks for coming in. For those of you who are new, my name is Sarah. For those of you who are coming back, thank you for coming back. And I'll see you guys in the next one.